Hello, parents, and welcome to part two of our series, Partnering in Faith. In this session, we'll be talking about parent partnership. And as we begin, I want to start with a quote from one of my favorite books by Stratford Caldecott. It's a book called Beauty in the Word. And he says, "It is a serious thing to be a teacher, just as it is a serious thing to be a parent. In both cases, the burden of responsibility would be too great for us if it rested on our shoulders alone. Luckily, the destiny of the child does not depend on us." It is indeed a weighty thing to be a parent and a weighty thing to be a teacher. And particularly when we try to join together in a partnership at a school, parents and teachers together, it can be overwhelming if we think that everything rests upon our own work and on our own shoulders. Thankfully, the Lord does this work, but He does call us in every way that we possibly can to partner well in this mission together. And so we want to ask the question, what do we mean by a parent partnership? What does this look like? And so for the rest of this video, we want to talk about some of the ways in which at Sager Classical Academy we define parent partnership and what that looks like for us, and also raise some questions about what that might look like for the parent. Parent partnership looks slightly differently in our lower school, pre-K through 6, as it does from our upper school, 7 through 12. In pre-K through 6, this looks like reinforcing the content taught at school and completing the learning at home from the school day. We utilize a Monday matrix, which gives an overview of the week and the various things that will be covered in each discipline of study. There are certain disciplines, however, that require additional training, things like Singapore math, or our phonics curriculum, or our IEW writing curriculum. In these cases, we provide that training for our teachers, training that our parents likely have not had the opportunity to receive, or at least not in as much depth as our teachers have received it. And therefore, we really focus our time during the instructional day where our teachers are working on those particular disciplines, math, phonics, and writing, that require that additional training. The attempt is to complete that instruction at school, to begin reinforcing those concepts through the schoolwork, and then to send home those things that don't require the same level of training or background for parents. This might mean reading a chapter in the literature book, or reading the story of the world history curriculum, or completing certain things like math facts in sprint exercises that don't require the Singapore math training. It's our attempt to communicate to the students as much and as we can within the school day of that instructional material, and then to send home parents things that they feel equipped and comfortable completing with their student. It's vital, therefore, for parents to do their part in the afternoons and complete that school day, because it is indeed the completion of a school day and not merely homework. Now, things are a little bit different in the upper school. In the upper school, we do have longer school days, and therefore an additional amount of instructional time. As students become older, it becomes a little bit more discipline specific, and those disciplines become increasingly more difficult. I know that helping my own children oftentimes with mathematics gets harder and harder the number of years that I find myself removed from taking a particular class. And so, particularly in things like mathematics or Latin or logic, parents oftentimes feel like as their students get to older grades, it's increasingly more difficult to help them with the particular work. With the increased time in the school day and the instructional day, it is still our intent to provide as much instruction as possible during the school day. We have gifted teachers who are working very hard in disciplines that they are gifted in and have studied in to provide our students with excellent education and instruction in those disciplines. At times, those students will come home with homework. Particularly, we believe that mathematics and language are things that should be done in small amounts, but every single day. Our other disciplines will occasionally require papers or projects or a little bit of extra reading, but our goal is to keep the homework load limited because we have extended the instructional day. So because the student's day is already a couple hours longer than in the lower school, we do want to limit the amount of homework. Nevertheless, it is important for students to receive some homework. It reinforces their learning from class. It gives them the ability to practice the skills of reading, writing, and mathematical or logical reasoning. And it provides ample time for studying the increasingly difficult books and concepts that we set before students in the upper school. The lengthier school day means that parents partner more as encouragers, those who would check to ensure that their student is completing their work and staying on task and up to date, since the vast majority of instruction is happening at school and is not expected to come home to the parent. Something that's really important in the way that we seek to partner with parents is the idea that we believe that parents are ordained by God as the primary educators of their children. While at school, SCA serves in the place of the parent, in loco parentis, but we do not replace the parent. We seek only to partner with the parent, not to supplant them in their child's education. On the parent side, this means that parents must not abdicate their role as the primary educator and discipler of their child. But what they are doing in partnering with SCA is agreeing to support SCA in its mission. We try to be abundantly clear about our mission. Our mission at SCA is to guide our students to investigate truth, pursue goodness, and cultivate beauty in all areas of life. We believe that education is founded on and directed by Jesus Christ, and that learning should be joy-filled, lifelong, and driven by our faith. This mission is then also supplemented by our five-fold, five-pillared vision, which is to be Christian, classical, hospitable, formational, or formative, and joy-filled. And through this mission and vision, we seek to be abundantly clear to parents about the kind of education that we are offering. Through a classical education that looks at the liberating arts, that feeds the soul on goodness, truth, and beauty, through the various kinds of disciplines of study, like mathematics, logic, Latin, the great books. Through that kind of education is the means by which we seek to educate and disciple students to be formed into the image of Christ. And so when parents say, yes, that's what I want for my student, and are partnering with us in that, it's important that we are articulating that mission and vision clearly to parents, and that they are supporting that mission in their work at home. What SCA then aims to do is to serve as the curators and the guides for that classical Christian education. We have many years of training and background in classical Christian education, gifted and talented teachers who are excellent in their craft. And a lot of work has gone into looking at the tradition and other schools to provide an excellent and contextualized classical Christian education for students. So as we dive deeper into this idea of a parent partnership, there's a couple of questions to ask. First of all, what are some things that SCA does or can do to honor this partnership? I'll talk about a few of the things that we intentionally do to honor this partnership, but I encourage you to think through that question. And if there are things that we can do better as a school, or we can do additionally as a school to help partner with you to honor that partnership and to give you the resources that you need to be the primary educator of your child, please let us know so that we can provide those resources. But then I'd also encourage you to think about the question, what are some things parents do or can do to honor this partnership? What is the responsibility of the parent in partnering rather than abdicating their role as parent and primary educator? So let's talk about a few of those things that we're already trying to do at SCA on our end of the partnership. As I already mentioned, we're trying to curate the best classical Christian resources and curriculum for our context. Classical Christian education across the world has many similarities, but like anything, it needs to be contextualized. We recognize that we are not a giant city, or we are not somewhere in Europe or Africa. Being in Siloam Springs and the surrounding area, we recognize that there are certain things about our context in which we need to focus our attention in a classical Christian education that will be most beneficial to families that live in this area. And so we seek to curate the best resources and curriculum for this particular context. We also aim to hire and train teachers who are knowledgeable in their disciplines, who are trained in classical pedagogy, and who are exemplars of the Christian faith. It's very important to us when we talk about forming students into the image of Christ, that if this is a formative education that leads us to glorify and enjoy God, then our teachers need to be exemplars of the Christian faith. We believe Jesus when he says that the student will become like his teacher. And so our teachers need to be people worthy of imitation. And so we put a lot of time into the hiring and training process for our teachers so that we could be well pleased when our students become like their teachers. We also try to provide parent training opportunities through Pastries with Parents, Donuts with Dr. Rapp, and other events. This video is one of several things we're aiming to do to provide more of an electronic resource for parents, videos and audio, things that could be accessed while traveling, and an opportunity to continue to grow even if parents cannot make certain events at certain places and times based on their schedule. We also are working very hard to provide academic assessments and updates to parents about how their children are doing, where they are struggling, and we've made a commitment through the employing of a reading interventionist to help our struggling readers. We're working very hard to partner with parents, not just of the best and brightest of our students, but of those that have struggled in many ways. And we recognize that God has created each child uniquely and individually, and we want to honor that uniqueness in each child, because we believe that every child can be educated and that every child is created in the image of God and is worthy of respect and dignity and honor and love. And so we seek to do that in the way that we partner in this education. And so finding ways to identify and help students who are struggling in many ways and to continue to provide them a Christian formative education through a classical model is a huge part of our mission as a school. We also seek to provide resources. In addition to some of the video and audio resources that we're working on providing, we have written resources. This is based off of a Partnering in Faith booklet that we handed out at the beginning of the school year, that if you did not receive or need additional copies of, we can provide you with the electronic resource if you contact the school. We're working on a classical Christian education primer. I have a rough draft available that some parents and faculty have received as we're working on finalizing that in time for January of 2026, where this will become the foundational text for our 4 Donuts with Dr. Rapp in the spring 2026 semester. And we also have a series of teaching the arts classically through a Christian imagination. The question of what does it look like to teach a particular discipline in a classical Christian way is something that requires a lot of thought and intentionality. And so already we have teaching science, we have teaching history, and we have teaching Bible and theology classically through a Christian imagination completed in that series, and we're working on more of those and other resources to come soon. It truly is our heart at Sagard Classical Academy to partner with parents in the education and discipleship of their children, that they may know, glorify, and enjoy God. And I hope that this video is a start in that process. Thank you so much.